Hey and welcome, I'm Hammeh, and in this video we'll be putting our tinfoil hats on as we delve into a new Overwatch story, lore, mystery and conspiracy that's been expanded on with recent information revealed via Sombra from BlizzCon 2016. What caused the Omnic crisis? Why are Talon, Lumerico and many other large corporations and factions acting the way they are? What's linking everything together? In Sombra's Origin trailer, with just this one image, along with a few interesting hints in her animated short Infiltration, we got one step closer to discovering the truth behind what makes the world of Overwatch tick, but also revealed a conspiracy that perhaps asks more questions than we have answers for. In this video, I'm going to be taking a step back and analysing all of this potential conspiracy, as Sombra has shown it to be, in real detail. Where it's come from, the background behind it, what we do and don't know about it for sure, both from this connections image and also referencing that with many lore sources along the way. I'll also be speculating on some new and potentially exciting things that we may have learnt, and then finally I'll take a good old-fashioned educated guess at what this conspiracy might be, and what the mysterious eye-like image is at its heart. This is a long video, I go into a lot of detail and analysis here. If you want to skip to certain companies, factions or individuals, there are time codes in the description, so take a look there. Buckle up, here we go. Firstly, where's this conspiracy come from? Essentially, we don't know a lot about the big bad, if there is just one, and what motivates certain factions in the Overwatch universe to behave the way they have or do today. Sombra's unveiling at BlizzCon 2016 with her own Origin trailer and the animated short Infiltration in which she featured have both given information that starts tying together many of these big questions in the Overwatch universe. Now before I get stuck in, two main things that brought it into the spotlight. Firstly, Sombra's lore. Politicians, corporations and governments were the things that she was hacking until somebody noticed her, this eye that attacked her in some way. In one image, the conspiracy or connections one in this trailer, we see a huge web of connections Sombra has put together, all connecting to this same eye that attacked her at its heart. Sombra is trying to find out who really runs the world, find their weaknesses and how to exploit them. Now this is in with Sombra's personality. When she does, she wants to be the one pulling the strings and in control. That's her motivation. It might be that as Sombra investigates, we learn more ourselves about the causes of some of Overwatch's big events and the motivations of various players around them. Secondly, Volskaya being blackmailed by Sombra in Infiltration. In the events of this short, Sombra shows Volskaya images of her getting tech from the enemy. Now, Volskaya receives a mysterious orb-like object from an unknown Omnic. This ties directly into part of this conspiracy and image in the Volskaya section. We'll examine that later in more detail. Finally, there's also another supporting angle to this conspiracy or these big questions going on in the Overwatch universe, Soldier 76's investigations. Ever since Jack Morrison came back onto the map as the mysterious S76, he's been looking into Lumerico, Los Muertos, Egypt, across old watch points, going around the world, potentially trying to work out who brought Overwatch down and why. Now he's teamed up with Amari in the events of her Old Soldiers comic. There's a couple of very capable people aside Sombra poking into the affairs of the world as well. Okay, that's the background and some of the big questions that Overwatch has yet to answer. Before getting stuck into analysing and explaining the contents of this image, I'm going to give you a quick bit of context as to how I've tried to read or interpret it. Sometimes you can't understand a diagram without a key, and as essentially that's what this is, I've taken my own interpretation of what the key is. Others may vary, but at least you'll know some of the viewpoints I'm looking from. There are some inconsistencies with reading this image based on visual layout and the way it's drawn, if you're trying to assign any precise meanings to the shapes, the size of the shapes, and the lines. We need to remember two important points. Sombra might not have all the data that we have. Strange, but possible. We as the outside observers of the story of Overwatch definitely know a lot more than some of the characters. Secondly, Michael Chu, head of story or the lead writer on Overwatch, said at BlizzCon that Sombra might possibly be the most unreliable narrator of all. Given that we've seen her duplicitous nature in her betrayal of Talon in Infiltration, her blackmail of Volskaya, and we've been told that hacking and investigating this conspiracy is almost an obsession for her, a defining or core part of her character, we really can't take everything she says as gospel truth. As this image is of Sombra's construction presumably, we've got to treat this likewise. There might be no conspiracy. The Eye might be a greater evil than Sombra and Talon, or less of an evil. It's quite unlikely it's not a bad force at all, for example, but this power is from Sombra's worldview, and we need to remember that. Firstly, connecting lines, the interconnections between organisations, factions, and characters. Can we read them in any meaningful way? You do have hard lines directly connecting people. I kind of see this as being a strong connection with regards to either the conspiracy or a character's importance around it. Take Anna, Morrison and Reyes, for example. Once friends, the command of Overwatch, they're all linked by hard lines to each other. They have very strong links in the story and also to their post-Overwatch aliases. Two hexagons or portraits next to each other but not connected by a line I see more as sort of a direct but perhaps a softer connection with regards to the conspiracy. Now, there are inconsistencies here. Volskaya, you can assume that it's her daughter and perhaps her husband next to her. We've seen what looks like to be the daughter in infiltration. They're not linked with direct lines, meaning that parents and children perhaps could be linked by just being in proximity, making the lines something other than relationship links. You then look at Anna, Pharah, and this mysterious stranger, which we'll cover later, over in the bottom right. Now the line between Pharah and Anna, and Pharah and the stranger, is all solid, so they could be a family unit, or they could not be at all perhaps. Again, I'll cover that in the what we could learn piece later. Finally, the hexagons. We can look at both the ways in which these hexagons for characters and individuals are laid out, and also their size. Now, the largest hexagons are major organisations or factions, presumably active ones. There is an exception, the Shimadas clan, but that was shut down by Overwatch in theory, so maybe it's smaller for that reason as being less active, or the individuals around it are less active at this point. For individuals, note that we've got two sizes too. Again, the larger ones, maybe they're active people, more directly involved in the conspiracy or of more interest. Smaller ones, perhaps not directly involved right now. Take Hanso, for example, over with the Shimadas. Some people we know of in the Overwatch universe aren't there at all. More on that later. I'll quickly summarise probably why they're not involved. What do we know and what don't we know? Firstly, in our analysis, let's start up top and take a look at Lumerico. Now, outside of the bust of Guillermo Portero, Lumerico's ex-CEO now, as of the events of Sombra's ARG, we've not really seen a picture of Portero, but we can see him here in the top left, strongly tied of course to the company. At the end of the Sombra ARG leading to her announcement, Sombra's hack had succeeded in releasing documents apparently showing corruption, and she'd also taken down parts of the new power network across Mexico, calling for Portero to step down, although he fully expects apparently to be exonerated in an inquiry. What looks to be more interesting or confusing to us is links between Lumerico and what look to be members of Los Muertos. These aren't confirmed, but we could have, if we try and make some comparisons between these images, the gang member holding the machine gun in Hero, one of the gang members who beat up the Omnic in the same short, and thirdly, perhaps this one is also one of the soldiers who gets on the wrong side of Soldier 76. Also, as has been mentioned before in my vids, the truck delivering the core to the plant in Dorado on the actual map has the same plates as the Los Muertos truck in Hero. That does make it look like, if it's not just a model reuse, that Los Muertos, or some of Los Muertos, are helping out Lumerico somehow. Finally, there's a mystery square. Who could this be? The leader of Los Muertos? If not, why is he not directly connected to Portero, or someone else entirely? Although we can speculate reasonably, I think, from this, that there's some link between Lumerico and some Los Muertos gang members, as well as what we've seen with the truck number plate, the wider picture does remain unclear as to how deep this connection runs. Recently, Los Muertos has, if Atlas News and Sombra are to be believed, been working together with Sombra and calling for Portero's resignation, staging protests against Portero after the recent events of the ARG before BlizzCon. If Los Muertos as a gang was entirely working for Lumerico, why would Sombra work with them to take down Lumerico? Los Muertos are a bit of an enigma still. Are they truly freedom fighters? Atlas News puts them as more a shade of grey. There's overwhelming evidence of their criminal activities, in spite of them theoretically standing up for the people. Maybe they're more a lawless, opportunistic group, chaotic neutrals, working with whoever they need to survive. Something doesn't quite add up here. We could say that it's only selected gang members connected to Lumerico. All these gang members aren't Los Muertos. Of course, that would make this conundrum go away. Let me know what you think in the comments. Before we move on from Lumerico and Portero, note that Portero in the top left leads to a big blank. Both Portero and Lumerico have more connections on the diagram going to the north. One thing I'm going to point out here, where are Vishkar? They're notable in their absence as a huge company, connected to the Overwatch story and several characters who just aren't here at the moment. I reckon maybe the large hexagon that's masked top left of Lumerico could be Vishkar, and then that would give us a route, if this image expands in the future, as I'm sure it will, into other characters. We do know, of course, that Vishkar and Lumerico were talking with regards to Vishkar helping Lumerico and Lumerico potentially supplying their energy technology for Vishkar developments around the world. This was shown from an email from Sanjay, Symmetra's handler, in her comic, A Better World, to Portero that we saw in the ARG email website. We know more about Lumerico thanks to the Sombra ARG and Sombra in the last few months, and we can see their direct connection to the eye in the middle of it all. But what's interesting here is that Lumerico are directly linked to Volskaya Industries. Now there's actually something that you may have seen in-game as a connection here. There are documents which look to be in Russian inside the power plant in Dorado. If you compare these to the ones on what I presume is Katya Volskaya's desk and private quarters on Volskaya Industries, they're the same. They've also got what looks to be Russian on them. So what that connection is, we don't exactly know, but it exists and it's represented on this conspiracy diagram. Okay, Katya Volskaya. We see her with what looks to be her daughter from the photo in the animated short, and then also a man, potentially her husband. Either way, he's linked to some schematics in boxes next to him, one of which is part of a schematic we've seen in Infiltration, containing the Orbor core handed by a mysterious Omnic to Volskaya when Sombra's blackmailing her. Outside of the connections of what may be her husband, Volskaya herself is also directly connected to the Omnic, of course, and what look to be schematics for a different kind of mech to a Sviatogor, perhaps the new mechs we see in Infiltration, the first in a decade, as Volskaya names them. It looks a little bit more short and compact than the huge, big, bulky Sviatogor mechs to me. Now, what is this orb? It, or things like it, are clearly very important to Omnics. Now, this is speculation. I think it looks quite similar to what a statue in memorial of Mondata, the ex-leader of the Shambali assassinated by Widowmaker, is shown bearing in King's Row. With this orb in one hand and a human child in the other, the object's clearly of almost spiritual importance. As the Shambali are an order of monks, this makes some sense. A couple of theories. Could it be something representing the heart or soul or being of an Omnic, or Omnic sentience somehow? Something that makes Omnics self-aware? Or represents them being self-aware, or is tied to how that's happened. If this is technology, or an AI, or a program of some sort, then it could be invaluable in mech design. Now, alternatively, and perhaps more simply, this orb is shown at the core of a lot of schematics that we see. Due to its physical position right at the middle of things, it reminds me a bit of the arc reactor in the Iron Man suit. Now, Zenyatta's orbs are specified in the visual source book as being powered by Omnic energy. Could this orb be a different source or a blueprint for making some kind of Omnic energy core, whatever powers an Omnic? Either way, this orb and Omnic are certainly mysterious. It'll be fascinating to see whether Sombra's assertion is true, that Volskaya, the defender of Russia, is getting tech from the enemy. However, we don't actually know about this mysterious Omnic. Could he or it be Zenyatta or Shambali-like, wanting to help peace and coexistence between Omnics and humans? So maybe the technology is to help humanity fight off the, for want of a better phrase, bad Omnics perhaps. This Omnic's really interesting. I can't wait to find out more about it and its links to Volskaya. A big mystery there. As to what this mech could be if it's not directly Volskaya Industries, well, we've seen other big giant type mechs or big walking mech figures. Here's two that I really love the look of. One of them is in the Overwatch animated reveal cinematic that we saw at BlizzCon way back in 2014. That's somehow connected to do with Overwatch and looks pretty cool, right? Maybe similar in shape or profile. The other one that I really want to be a thing, way back, I did a top 5 heroes video where I speculated that this was perhaps a hero or a duo called Hawk, due to the visor around this person's eyes. However, look at the mech that Hawk is with. Again, another big walker. Given the background in this picture, it could explain that mech's direct tie to Numbani. Whatever the orb and these schematics are representing, they have a direct link to Numbani, which is where we go to analyse next. This symbol is part of the Numbani flag. It's actually in the language or in a lot of the writing that you see around various places on the map, and it's also tied to what looks like to be a spider tank. Where have we seen spider-like walkers? Well, in several places. We do know that they were a core part somehow of the Omnic forces that devastated the world in the first Omnic crisis. Take a look in Bastion Short, the last Bastion, we see them there. We also see them in the Overwatch Museum. Again, this spider mech I think looks pretty similar. You can have a look on Eichenwalde for giant ones of these and smaller ones of these too, and some other places as well. Take a look at Ana in this old Overwatch footage where she's pretty much ripping the top off of one. I think it's safe to say that however this spider design is linked to Numbani, we've got some examples as to what it could be. Remember, Omniums clearly stole or obtained blueprints and tech from what were non-Omnic Corporation sources. Take the Bastion unit, for example. Bastion's creator is cited as being SST Technologies, a company who are actually still active or trading on the stock market in the present Overwatch day. So if Omniums, which churned out the forces for the Omnics of the first Omnic crisis, could take a Bastion unit schematic, maybe they took this Spider Walker schematic from someone else. We know that the Omniums took the Titan schematic from either the Ironclad Guild or someone connected with Torbjorn, as he's told us in his comic. Whichever spider tank this is, it's directly linked onwards from Numbani to the Doomfist. So Doomfist, of course, is linked heavily to Numbani. We presume he either lived there or operated there in a couple of different forms. Indeed, the Doomfist exhibition is going to be in the Numbani Heritage Museum. It's why you're transporting the Doomfist in the payload on the map. Now, so far, what do we know of Doomfist? I've covered this in other videos, but as a very quick summary, we know that there's been at least 2 Doomfists. There was one who was the Saviour, a second who was the Scourge, judging by their names, different individuals, and Winston apparently beat the Scourge, according to the Little Kid in the announcement cinematic for Overwatch. We don't exactly know what happened to Doomfist the original, or the Doomfist defeated by Winston Scourge edition. We do know one thing: the Doomfist as a weapon is linked to Talon, and as is presumably the Scourge too. Not only are they on the conspiracy diagram, but they have been since Overwatch was announced back in 2014, Reaper and Widowmaker attempting to steal the Doomfist in the initial cinematic. They're also linked by voice lines. Reaper has a voice line saying that
Doomfist should do his own dirty work.
And if Doomfist should be doing his own dirty work, then it seems that Doomfist is somehow connected with Reaper and Talon as a person, not just as a weapon. Are Talon just trying to recover Doomfist's weapon of choice, and what are his connections? It seems quite possible, but we'll have to find out more about that. Following the connections on from the Doomfist, we go on to Talon themselves. Now, if proximity is anything to judge by with regards to the hexagons and shapes, Talon are right next to the centre of the conspiracy, but they're not quite the middle of it. What is Talon's relationship to the power that controls the world? Talon, well, notorious terrorist organisation, active since before the fall of Overwatch, and we're not quite sure when they started, but particularly during the period where Overwatch was active in the world, they ran many missions or assassination attempts against them, particularly against one agent that we know of, Gerard Lacroix, the Overwatch agent in charge of Overwatch activities against Talon. Having failed to attack him multiple times, they managed to kidnap Amélie Lacroix, his wife. This of course led to her brainwashing, reconditioning, killing Gerard in his sleep, and the creation of Widowmaker, who, along with Reaper, are both connected to Talon obviously, directly in this diagram. So far so known. We know what Widow and Reaper have been up to in the Recall cinematic, Infiltration, Alive, and also of course the intro. But what's Talon's true motivation behind all this? Well, there are many different theories. They certainly want worsening Omnic-human relations, and I've actually listed all the different things that Talon get up to, as well as investigate them more in my Lore Bites series. I'll put a link to that in the description. Either way, we've got links from Talon into the next section of the map, Overwatch. Reaper's long-term connections or involvement with Talon we don't quite know at this point. However, naturally he links into Overwatch through his former life as Gabriel Reyes. We've got an interesting mystery via Widowmaker though, an anonymous figure connecting her to Overwatch via Ana Amari. Now, given that one of Ana's in-game interactions with Widow is...
Gerard was a fool to love someone like you.
You don't know anything about him.
Could this be Gerard Lacroix? Seems unlikely, as far as we know at the moment he's been killed, but people have come back from apparent death before in Overwatch. If so, why would he have a solid line linked to Ana, but not to Widow? Moving into the Overwatch section a bit further, via Reaper, a lot of this is known to us already, but as with the Widowmaker mysterious figure, there are some interesting new pieces still. While we're on the subject of Ana, she has another mysterious portrait near her, and one that's right next to her daughter Pharah to most these days. As it seems you can be family with or without a line joining your portraits on this diagram, this figure is also a mystery. People have speculated it could be a sibling of Pharah's, but I think it's more likely that this is Mr. Amari. Pharah's dad is known in the Overwatch universe from the San Diego Comic-Con 2016 panel. She knows who he is, as does everyone in the universe apparently. It's not a mystery. Blizzard are just waiting to tell the story. Pharah's connections to Helix Security, her employer, are well known in her lore, as well as what looks like the head of Anubis, or the front gates of the Temple of Anubis. Anubis, of course, is a god AI, one quarantined by Overwatch after the Omnic crisis in the Giza AI facility, and which almost broke free from Helix Security's guards in the events of Pharah's comic mission statement. Moving away from Pharah, we've got a lot of knowns here. 3 of the original strike team, the founders of Overwatch, Reyes, Morrison and Amari, are there along with their post-fall of Overwatch identities. Other key main team figures like Winston, Tracer and Mercy are all present, and also Genji, Torbjorn and Reinhardt. It's the latter 3 that have a few more interesting new parts, so I'm going to jump straight to those. Firstly, the Shimadas and Genji. He's of course directly connected to his former clan, the broken up criminal organisation which Hanzo, his brother, is also of course connected to. Now, what's interesting here is another mystery silhouette right next to Hanzo. There's no one dead as far as we know on the diagram right now, so this probably rules out Hanzo and Genji's father, who we know to have passed away. Could this be another Shimada family member of some kind? A clan elder perhaps? There's onward connections from the Shimada clan too, so perhaps we have more Shimada stories to be told. Torbjorn and Reinhardt sit in a cluster with Brigitte, Reinhardt's travelling companion and mechanic and squire type figure. Now, Brigitte has a connection of her own leading upwards on the chart. I'd love to know who or what that goes to as well. The main interesting point here for me is Reinhardt's connection to this speculated Omnic Mech or figure. Now, I keep thinking in my head I've seen this exact picture before. I can't find it right now after a bunch of looking, but here's what I have off the top of my head that's similar. There's this bot. I'm looking at a similarity in the eyes, not really the horseshoe or dot pattern around the face, on the cover of First Strike, Overwatch's upcoming graphic novel. There's also these, what look to be mechs or bots of some kind, inside what I think might be the Detroit Omnium, in a page from First Strike. Again, this was on screen only from the Overwatch San Diego Comic-Con panel. Liao, the 6th member of the Overwatch Strike team, is still a mystery to us. Whether they're this person on the cover of First Strike or not, as I've speculated, we're just going to have to wait and see. We do, however, see this same figure with the Overwatch Strike team in a different page, hitting an Omnium in the snow, the Siberian one in Russia perhaps. They also seem to have what looks to be the same Omnic or Mech with them as on the First Strike cover. Whoever this figure, character or person is, they're directly connected to the eye, so they have to be important, even though they're a smaller hexagon. Why is Reinhardt connected with this person? Who or what is it? I'm really hoping that First Strike, if it's still out this November 2016 digitally as was originally planned, is going to shed some answers on this. However, one final thought. When taking a second look at this First Strike panel, I looked at the head shape of this character who seems to be at the centre of causing trouble in the Omnium. Does that look similar to this helmet to you? Okay, we've gone through everything in that diagram with who is in there and some of the links and connections. Let's have a quick summary of who's not in there. Well, there are 10 Overwatch heroes missing at this point in time, but I think there are good reasons for these. Firstly, D.Va. She's a lone player in the lore at the moment and has no real ties to anyone at all currently, borne out by her voice lines and interactions. Lucio, a lone player, he is tied into Symmetra via Vishkar, of course, but Vishkar isn't on this diagram right now, so again, makes sense that he's not quite there. Symmetra is an agent of Vishkar who, as I've said, aren't on the diagram, also isn't present. Zarya is a bit of an interesting one. Even though she's shown at the end of Sombra's infiltration short, she's not shown here as anything to do with Volskaya, so either she's not involved with this conspiracy or on the big global stage, or perhaps she's not known to Sombra yet. Zenyatta? Well, the Shambali, with no Mondata as a leader anymore, we're not really sure how well known Zenyatta is worldwide, and he's not even there with any ties to Genji, his former pupil and apprentice. Could well be outside of the conspiracy. Mei's a bit interesting. She's Overwatch affiliated, of course, via working as a scientist in the Eco program. Currently, she's apparently on a one-woman mission to restore the Eco watch points that had broken down and try to recover the data and find out what's happening to the planet. Judging by her blog, she's had some contact with Winston after coming out of cryostasis, but again, she's probably a lone player, not involved deeply in this historic conspiracy, if that's what it is. McCree again, more Overwatch affiliated perhaps than Mei, as we've seen him in multiple assets and different crowd shots as well. Via Blackwatch, we know he's currently off the grid, apart from the events of his comic, Trainhopper. There's no Blackwatch on here actually by Reyes, who's so central to things he'd be there anyway. We know that McCree left Blackwatch to avoid the infighting, and perhaps that's kept him out of the conspiracy. Bastion, again a lone player, we know him as the last Bastion, but in the world no one might know he actually even exists yet. And finally we've got Junkrat and Roadhog. I'm surprised not to see them here in a sense, if we think that the treasure that Junkrat stole from the Australian Omnium's remains, that Roadhog is bodyguarding him for, was something of importance. A god AI, an AI core or something that was speculated, maybe something that had given clues or was valuable as to how the Omnic crisis started, then why wouldn't they be here? It's all speculation, of course. These two have a worldwide crime spree going on with no ties to anyone currently, and they might just well stay that way. Okay, so, as a summary, what have we learnt and what are we wondering about from this image? Firstly, organisations. We know that Lumerico are connected to Los Muertos somehow, most likely. It does throw some doubt, if so, on how much Los Muertos are really for the people of Mexico anymore. A very murky organisation. We know that Volskaya Industries and Katya Volskaya are directly working with Omnics with an unknown Omnic technology which somehow has some connections to Numbani. Why are they doing this? What are the motivations of Volskaya and the Omnics? As for the various blanks on the image, there's another character between Ana and Pharah that we don't know who it is. Mr. Amari? Another Amari sibling? Perhaps unlikely. There's also a blank between Ana and Widow. Could this be Gerard Lacroix? And then if so, what's the connection between Ana and Gerard? Good friends? Or something different? There's a Shimada clan blank as well, we have no idea who that could be, and also a blank near Los Muertos if it is then, maybe another gang member. Vishkar I believe are notable in their absence from this image, so how do they tie into all of these different plots? And finally this mysterious bot, how are they tied to Reinhardt, and are they anything to do with Liao? After summarising all of that, let's get to the eye at the centre of it all. Whatever it represents, it hunted down Sombra, and it's right at the heart of everything. It feels to be a dangerous force, connected to Lumerico, Volskaya, Numbani, Talon and Overwatch, as well as individual figures too. Now I do have a few theories and ideas. These are all speculation at this point. I'm going to try and back them up with what we know in lore to give a few supported theories, but these are educated guesswork. Firstly, how about if this eye is just the logo of Omnica Corporation? Remember, Omnica Corporation revolutionised robotic manufacturing in Overwatch's world with their massive automated robot building factories, Omniums. These were installed on every continent in the world. When these began to break down, analysis showed they would never come close to meeting the promises that had been made for their growth and output. Omnica was investigated, forcibly dissolved after fraud was uncovered and all of the Omniums were shut down. So when they reawakened and started churning out robots in the Omnic crisis, naturally the world was a bit mystified. Whether the Overwatch world actually knows why this happened or not just yet, we don't know at this point in time. Omnica Corporation was dissolved due to fraud. We've seen in First Strike preview panels from San Diego Comic-Con, there is this guy, as I mentioned, in what appears to be a broken down Omnium, presumably after the company was dissolved, at the controls of something. Could some kind of Omnic big bad, employee, company leader, be behind it all? That could explain the first Omnic crisis, but what about the second? Omnic and the crisis its factories created is at the heart of Overwatch's story. It hasn't been hugely explained, and it does also bring many of the characters together. So could it, or someone connected it, be a candidate to be this AI force? It's quite possible. How about the AI being a god AI or something of that level, the force that started the Omnic crisis in a different sense? In Pharah's comic mission statement, we learn that Overwatch quarantined what presumably was more than one god AI after the first Omnic crisis. It's in the plural. We also learnt about the capabilities of god AIs. This technology is about 25 plus years old, but it's capable of corrupting infrastructure and launching military assaults. This sounds mightily like what the Omniums did in the first Omnic crisis. Remember, Omniums had automated construction machines and self-improving software algorithms and churned out legions of bots, mechs, you name it. The Anubis AI in mission statement is old, as I've said. Depends how you date the end of the Omnic crisis. I've tried that in some of my Lore Bites videos. But it makes relatively quick work of some, admittedly slightly outdated, according to Pharah, defences and firewalls, and broke free of its containment, unless of course it was released by someone. Here's a question. Did Overwatch manage to get all of the god AIs at the end of the first Omnic crisis, if indeed they were part of what caused it? If Anubis is able to cause this much trouble in the present day, what could a god AI, particularly if it's self-improving, have managed to become in 25 years of being out in the wild in the world, if it remained hidden? Quite a scary thought. Historically, there's also something else. Who created the god AIs in the first place? Could either someone have unleashed one again, or could the AI just represent an AI itself, manipulating world affairs via proxy companies and individuals? A god AI, or individual or organisation working with one, could certainly tie everything up. What do you reckon? Thirdly and finally, this may be the least likely of them, but some people have said that the eye could be something to do with the iris that Zenyatta and the Shambali mention very often. Now of course there's a tie there. You can't deny that an iris is part of an eye, and our mysterious logo here in the centre has an eye at its core. However, the iris is seen by the Shambali as a positive force, almost spiritual. It embraces you to Omnics, it's something that can almost be felt. Zenyatta says in Nepal that he can feel the embrace of the iris so strongly there. This image and conspiracy, although of course Sombra's not a reliable narrator, make it seem more negative. Still, whether the iris is something quantifiably real without going too far into philosophical debates and terms, or more spiritual, metaphysical or belief-based, you can't deny that there is a little similarity in concept if nothing else. Now whether there's anything else to that one, who knows. Everything here of course is speculation as to what this eye could be at this point, but those are my three main thoughts. Whew. We've covered a heck of a lot there. Thanks if you've made it this far. I want to know what you think of the conspiracy or this image. Who or what do you think is the eye at the centre of it all? And whom, again or what, could our missing figures be in the various blank hexagons? Do let me know in the comments all of your thoughts and theories. I'll try and respond to as many as I can. I'd love to chat this over with you. Overwatch's story has taken a lot of different separate strands so far, so this image, along with potentially the first Strike graphic novel, could and has really started putting it all together slowly. In the coming months, I can't wait to see what we learn about how Overwatch's story and how all of the different strands come together. Thanks for tuning in to my Overwatch Eye Conspiracy video. If you like this vid, please do throw it a like, share it, let me know your thoughts in the comments as always, really helps me out, and I appreciate the support too. I go into all aspects of Overwatch lore and story, as well as news and more around the game on my channel. Hit subscribe for more, and check out these playlists if you want to go deeper. Big thanks to the Patreon supporters here who help make this video possible, and if you'd like to support me make more videos like this, please do check out my Patreon by clicking on the link in the middle here. Cheers for tuning in. I've been Hammeh, take it easy.